Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Let me introduce our distinguished panel, and I will read a little to make sure I don't screw it up. To my right is Liz Jenkins, the COO of Hello Sunshine, a media, brand, and premium content studio dedicated to female authorship and storytelling across all platforms. Liz joined the company in 2018 as its CFO, and during her time at Hello Sunshine, she's been responsible for establishing and overseeing finance, business affairs, physical production, music and operations, as well as facilitating the growth of the company's businesses, including their scripted, unscripted, and direct-to-consumer businesses. And she has her MBA from Wharton. Next to her, is Carmen Bona, who's returning to Anderson, where she got her MBA in 2012. She is the Chief Strategy and Corporate Development Officer at United Talent, UTA. She oversees strategy development, long-range planning, mergers and acquisition, and key growth and transformational initiatives across all divisions of the company. And at my far right, to your far left, is Tommy Oliver, the founder, CEO, and co-chair of Confluential Films. Tommy's a film financer, an award-winning writer, director, producer, editor, photographer, and cinematographer, who most recently directed and produced Juice WRLD Into the Abyss, which was a massive hit for HBO and HBO Max. And this morning, I realized he was also the guy who created the next show my wife and I are going to be watching, which is called Black Love, and more on that in just a couple of minutes. Let's start with Carmen. So Carmen, you're sitting at one of the big agencies in town. You've got an overview of what's happening in the business. Can you talk a little bit about why we're in this sort of second golden age of independent production?
Yeah, it's extremely exciting times. And 10 years ago, I was sitting on the other side of this and thinking, should I really go into entertainment? Because there was a shift in the industry, and it felt like there might not be as much opportunity for creativity and create unique voices as there have been in the past. And now I find myself thinking, wow, I completely misread it. There's more than ever. So it's definitely exciting times for anyone who is interested in the industry and creativity and creators. And the reason for that is pretty obvious. It's sort of a classic business explanation of a supply chain disruption, right? We went from a world in which studios played a certain role, and then there were distributors, and if you created a film that hit it big in the box office or a show that got 8 seasons, you took the risk, and then you got some reward because you sold it and so on, and got some participations. And then we swung way too much, in my opinion, to the other side, where there was too much integration across the value chain. Everyone was taking the risk away from the creators and putting that more in a sort of cost-plus model where you didn't have a risk as a creator, but you also didn't have a lot of the reward, and a lot of the creative decisions were stripped out of that community. And I think we're at a place where the opposite is about to happen, and maybe we'll land in a happy medium at some point, where more and more creators, more and more independent producers and talent themselves are trying to take that control back, trying to make their own decisions, have agency, and participate in the upside, and have options and not just align themselves. So in some sense, the studios integrating vertically has created a gap in the business that small production companies like Hello Sunshine and many others have been able to fill. And it's extremely exciting because it puts a lot of power in the hands of small people that have a lot of stories to tell.
Tommy, so you're the one up here besides me who does not have an MBA. But you've got your degree from Carnegie Mellon. But when we're talking, I hear a businessman, with a tremendous creative background and power. Can you talk, maybe framing up Black Love? Not that I've tried to get people to watch it, and not just as a show though. But what is amazing to me is how you described it as a business.
So one, I'm really happy to be here, and so thank you for having me. And Black Love was something that my wife and I created, and we did it in a very simple way. But for me, I'm a bit of a weirdo in that I'm as much a creative as I'm a business person. And we were joking about this earlier, where I get as excited about breaking story or finding a cool shot as I do about figuring out how to do a cool deal. And for Black Love, it was really that combination where we did the entire first season out of pocket. And so paid for it out of pocket. We cut the first episode, we cut a sizzle, we wrote a treatment, and then we took it out. But I was adamant about how we went out with it, which was that I wanted us to own the show, which is atypical. And we wanted to license the show, and we're sort of like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. But it's like, no, this is what I want to do. I know there was a massive opportunity if we got it right. And the one place that my wife really wanted was OWN, and fortunately they were into it. And so we took what was basically a comically low license fee in exchange to be able to own it. But lo and behold, the show wound up premiering as the most viewed unscripted series in the network's history, unscripted series, and it spawned. We did 6 seasons of it. We decided to end it last year, but it was all because we decided to do it in a way that made sense for us, and we built an entire business around it. And we wound up making more money off of season 1 of this small documentary series with 4 episodes than I did off of a movie that I produced as the only PGA mark producer on it that opened up #1 in the US. And it was all because we owned it, and there was a different way of thinking about going about the business.
That's terrific. Thank you. So, Liz, how do you go from actress to MBA to MRC to one of the most exciting production companies in town? I literally have not had a female MBA student in the last 5 years who, when asked, where would you like to work, has not answered, hello, sunshine.
You know, I mean, that's a really, really long story. But here's what I would say is, for me, I was always driven by, like, following my passion, honestly. Every single, like, role I took throughout my life was like, I want to do something that I'm, like, personally interested in. And yes, it actually started because back in the day, I really wanted to be an actress, but I think I was just a little bit too much of a pragmatist to pursue that as a full-time career. And, you know, I thought, I love movies, I love television shows, I'm good with math. I mean, literally that was sort of what brought me to this place. And when I made the move from investment banking actually to LA, and I started at MRC, the thing that struck me, and this was, gosh, now over 15 years ago, so it was a time in which there weren't a ton of MBAs in Hollywood, and there were sort of kind of 2 paths that you could take, really, which were, one was to go work in corporate development and Disney, actually, in strat planning, really, for the most part. Or you could say, hey, I'm going to start out as an assistant at an agency, and I'm going to take more of that creative path. And I just sort of said, I'm going to try to see if I can find an environment where I can really dig in, like a small, high-growth company with founders who looked like me. They were both both our co-CEOs were MBAs in MRC, and really have the opportunity to get into lots of different pieces of the industry. And so I did that, and then essentially ended up a few years later at Hello Sunshine, and have, you know, been able to bring together sort of all of the component pieces, from distribution to sourcing to kind of deal making to financing and all of that, and you know, have brought it all together here at Hello Sunshine.
Cool. So I want to dive into that financing thing now. So each of you have dealing with it in a different way right now, and it's changed, right? So, you know, Carmen, can you talk a little bit? You guys now have a private equity partner, you know, at UTA. How is that changing things for you guys, and how does it snap into the mission you have?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's changed much, because we did pick a partner that was very much aligned with what we were doing and really understood the risk they were taking and the opportunity ahead. It has supercharged our ambition, but at the heart of what we do was always this concept of, look, we're number 3, right? Like there's no debate. The other ones are bigger, so we need to be a bit scrappier, and we need to be a bit more focused on unique voices, on unique spaces. We're the first ones to launch, for example, a podcasting division, and then take some of the talent that breaks out in podcasting and put them in film and television and so on. So that concept of, where do you find unique voices? Where do you find people with stories to tell, like people around me, and supercharge them, has been always at the heart of what we do, and that's where our investors have been supportive. Having them behind us allows us to be more aggressive. For example, say, well, a lot of that is not happening in the US anymore, it's happening international, so let's go and make an acquisition internationally where we can tap into a new pool of creators that we can represent, and both supercharge in their countries, but also start bringing to the US, where there's a ton of appetite for international content. So it sort of follows the same logic that we're already using as our competitive advantage, from a position of weakness turning into a position of strength. It just allows us to be more global, more ambitious, do more things at the time.
Now, Tommy, you've turned into a financer. You were telling me you financed 4 films at Sundance this year?
3.
3. How did that transition happen for you?
It was sort of a natural transition where I'm a a writer, director, producer, and I love producing. I love being a creative, but there is oftentimes a lack of understanding of the types of projects that people of color want to do from the people who have the ability to say yes. And for so long in this town, there's been one type of person who said yes to content. And I realized there was a massive business opportunity. And so it was something that we just wanted to do as we were continuing to grow and looking at our slate, looking at the opportunities, looking at the partners that we had. And so it was just a long process of figuring out the right way to do it because, like you, we wound up with the right partner, but I was really patient and partnered with Goldman Sachs to help us raise money. We went through lots of conversations, lots and lots of conversations, and I was uninterested in the wrong money or the wrong partner. I was also uninterested in bringing on partners who were going to tell me what to do when it's my company and I know what I'm interested in and the types of things we should be doing. And so we had a good amount of interest, but it was really just about wanting to continue to do things we could be proud of, that we could do profitably, and seeing that opportunity and also be patient with that. And so we had been financing stuff out of my pocket before, but not at the scale that we wanted to or where the opportunity is, because there's still a massive white space. And you think about this town and the number of people who look like us who can say yes to something, it's minuscule. And it's still a massive missed opportunity where you look at things like the McKinsey study where it pointed out there's probably $10 billion and money left on the table because the right content isn't being created. And so there's still a massive opportunity. And so for me, it was just a natural progression of the types of things that we're interested in.
So you have a big financial pot at hand. For those of you who don't know, Candle Media with Blackstone money, I believe it is, paid $900 million for Hello
Cannot
Sunshine.
confirm or deny.
Very well. But that kind of backing allows you to do different things. So do you want to talk a little bit about something, that really was a game changer for you guys, having that sense of resource?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think one of the reasons as we were going through the process and talking with potential partners, and one of the reasons that we selected Candle Media and Blackstone was we felt such a real sense of alignment around the long-term vision that we had for the company. And obviously for every entrepreneur, there comes a point in time where you've got to make that decision. Is it time to raise more capital? Is it time to sell? Can I grow faster with the backing, both the strategic and financial backing of a different partner? And for us, it was the right time to do it, and the right partners who understood sort of the opportunity, the moment we saw, as everyone talks a lot about the convergence of content, community, and commerce, but we thought with the brand that we'd been building, with the position that we have with women, the trust of women, that now was really the right time to kind of double down and build even faster and more ambitiously, understanding too that sort of the dynamic in the industry was changing, and to be able to expand sort of our consideration set as we think about how do we take certain projects to market, where it's important to own content, and really sensing that there's going to be a change in the marketplace. One, because platforms can't keep buying and spending at the rate they're spending. They're going to have to rethink that. And so having the ability to deploy meaningful amounts of capital to take even more risk sets us up to own differently, to control our destiny a little bit differently. So with the addition of that capital, we think about whether it's acquiring businesses. About 4 months after we closed the deal with Candle and Blackstone, we acquired a company called The Home Edit. It's a home organizing business. We partnered with them on an unscripted series for Netflix. They've grown, established an amazing product line at both Walmart and Container Store globally around home organizing. They've got a podcast now we worked with UTA on, in fact. And so it gave us the opportunity to actually buy that company. As we think about projects and we take them to market, we think really differently about the amount of capital that we're able to invest ahead of time, and are closing deals that we think are even more advantaged than we could have without them as a partner. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah, Let's follow up. I'm sorry. You're gonna say
I was
something,
going to say,
Carmen?
for those thinking of going to small companies in the space or starting their own thing, just get that message that there's a lot of money still flowing. There's a lot of appetite because people see that there's almost endless demand, whether it's for this or sports or other spaces in the entertainment space. You'll get a. It's funny. I was consulting in my previous life as a consultant. I was consulting for Blackstone when a lot of these processes were going on with Candle Media, and I remember it was extremely competitive. You had to fight every single private equity in town to try to get into these production companies, and that's not stopping. That's what we see in every single process for every asset in this space. There is just a lot of appetite from investors because there's a lot of demand from consumers. So that's going to continue, and it's going to create a ton of opportunities.
I'm gonna yes and so I think that that's true for folks who are established and for people who are public facing. And so it's a lot harder when you don't have those networks to begin with. It's a lot harder when you haven't been around for 20 years. And it's not raising money is hard.
It's a grind. Yeah.
It's hard. And yes, there's a lot of money, but a lot of people are just flat out uninterested and they still don't get the business case in the way that the data shows. And so yes, it's possible, but it is effing hard.
So you've got a creative background. How did you talk business to the people that had money in a way that got you the money you needed to start up and grow?
I am fortunate in that we could have conversations about business. You would never know that I understood creative at all. And so I am as much a business person as I'm a creative. And I love the business. And I double majored in economics, digital media, minored in business. And we can talk modeling and P&Ls, and we can go through all of those things. And I'm somebody who believes in being luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. And so I'm going to do the research. I'm going to understand the business. I'm not going to start talking about stuff that I can't substantiate, that I can't bring up the data on, or the stuff where I've already done the work for it prior to. And so one of the things that Goldman had come to sort of describe me as was the only creative that they were working with or that they had come across who genuinely thought like an investor. And so for me, it was just, that's how I am. I love both sides and finding that space where they work together, because they do. This idea that it's art versus business is a bunch of BS. They absolutely work together if you understand both sides, if you choose to understand both sides.
Talk a little bit about the Black Love business, because that was so interesting over coffee. It's like, yeah, there's a show, but there's a business.
So it was one of the big upsides from being able to do the deal in the way that we did. When, again, it exceeded my expectations. I knew there was an opportunity. I knew I didn't want to do the traditional business. And for me, the fee business, you can't build something at scale. And it's not really sustainable. And it's fine, but it's also like, look, if somebody can afford to pay you that much, what's on the other side of that? What's that delta? And so us owning Black Love allowed us to build out in a real way. And so now we have blacklove.com. We've got live events. We've got virtual events. We have a podcast network. We have an app. We have more than 75 million organic monthly impressions across our network. We've got partnerships with Target and Chase and lots of other places. And in a similar way, how with Hello Sunshine, it is women focused, speaking to an audience. Black Love is all about Black love thematically related content, from romantic love and self-love and familial love, done in a positive, affirming way. And there's a real audience for that. And it's something that is organic to us. And because we own the show, we own all 40 plus episodes, all 6 seasons, every single clip, we can do whatever the hell we want with it. And we have, and it's been great. But had it been something that the network owned, that would have been it. There would have been no ability to unlock it. There would have been no ability to think creatively about the business. And it's been great.
So as you've got content, creative community, am I getting the 3 C's right?
Content, community, commerce.
Yes.
Okay. Talk a little bit about how you guys manage that balance.
I think one of the things is commerce, and like just to double click on that, for us, number one, it doesn't just mean selling things to people. It can in some cases, but we also think about it as like ways in which extending that engagement with our audience and community beyond just sort of the screen. So it could mean with Reese's Book Club, it's downloading an app or subscribing to a newsletter. So we consider that to be sort of commerce. We've gotten a part of their time. It's not just sort of share of wallet. I think that's one thing that we think a lot about too, is when we think about like commerce and selling something to someone or extending it, the relationship in that way, it's really, really critical that you do it in a way that's sort of like authentic and it feels organic to the content, and it's in a way that makes like the consumers' lives easier. It's not cynical. It's not just sort of, hey, we want you to click and buy this piece of merch too. So I'll give you an example. We have a show on Amazon called Making the Cut. And I think for a long time, people were trying to figure out, have been trying to figure out how to solve for like T-commerce, right? Project Runway had tried it in a way, and it didn't work in the same way it did in Making the Cut, because it was just so kind of ingrained in like the fabric, frankly, of how the show was constructed, right? So you have these designers, they're like competing each week, and it's really about building a brand. The show is also on Amazon as part of every week's competition. The winning designer's accessible look was available for purchase in the Making the Cut store on Amazon. This is in a world of streaming where people watch whenever they want to watch. These looks were selling out like within hours of an episode dropping. And it was because not only was it convenient that you could go and click and buy it on Amazon, it was the connection that the audience built to each of the designers. So people bought the looks not necessarily just because they wanted to wear it, but because they were supporting that designer. And so it felt really like authentic to that experience. So that's one of the things we think about, is we can't approach it in a cynical way. It's like, is the show better? Is the viewer experience better because we're providing this opportunity to like interact, engage with the content in a different way?
And so, Carmen, at UTA, how do you guys talk about the producers that you guys represent? How do you talk about, going from just being a company that makes a show or a movie to, being a bigger business?
That's sort of the heart of the agency in some sense, right? And by the way, the answer might not always be you need to own 100% of it and build a business around it. Sometimes the answer is, you know what, it's going to be a limited series that doesn't have a lot of commercial potential. The license fee is going to be higher. So it's less about just pushing all the way to one answer and more about regaining the agency as the creator of what happens to your content and participating in the upside. And that's something that it's constantly top of mind. So we're constantly meeting with our key creators and whether it's producers, actors, etc., and kicking the tires around what are the next things that you want to do, which ones lend themselves better to an overall deal, which ones lend themselves better to a specific sellout, which ones lend themselves better to you keeping the rights and we pursue something different internationally, which ones lend themselves better to building a whole business. There's a lot of appetite. I feel like everyone wants to be rich these days, so everyone thinks they're going to create a whole massive company, but that's not always the case, and just having that honest conversation with creators, I think, are more and more savvy than they've ever been, and understanding their options and being a thoughtful or sort of a good thought partner to our creators and laying out the pros and cons, how hard it is also, to be honest, to do some of the things that you've pulled off, and then having them make the decision ultimately is about that. For us, it's about agents, thought partners, creating opportunities, giving honest advice, and let everyone make the right decision at different times for different projects.
So one of you is an entrepreneur and the other two work for an entrepreneur. I just want to dig into that briefly. So Carmen, we'll start with you. You work for the guy who founded UTA, Jeremy Zimmer. Right. What are the best things about working for the founder or entrepreneur of a company?
I think in his case, he's a very specific personality that has balances two things that have driven the success of the agency. On the one side, he's an agent, right? He believes in service. He gets a kick out of talking to a client about his options and building something together. And you see him as it's the first time you're doing it because you're so passionate about it and you've probably done it 1,000 times. And I think as a good entrepreneur, you need to keep that passion for the core of what you do and servicing your clients alive for as many years or decades as you're running your business. And then on the other side, he's the kind of guy that has kind of stretch the universe of what an agency can do, right? Because ultimately, to drive growth, you cannot just be servicing one vertical, servicing clients in a certain way. What I think some of our peers demonstrated is that agencies can be a lot more, right? And when music became a big thing for agents to get involved in, so how do we create a music arm? Sports is right now having a massive moment. How do we partner with Rich Paul in our case and Clutch Sports and have a sports arm that is as important as some of our current talent things? All the new spaces, podcasting, esports, influencer marketing, all these different areas. So having that balance of, I still love the core and I super serve my core, but also Jeremy's like, I can step out and be like, wait a minute. Actually, the big thing that's happening right now is brands getting back to being important in content, right? As we unleash AVOD and other sponsorship type deals, where I think brands have been pushed aside a little bit or advertisers have been pushed aside for the last few years. How do we now create a division that can really serve and tap into that opportunity and play in the ecosystem? So that balance, I think, is what makes a good entrepreneur go beyond the first few years and actually build a company that is massive and has a legacy.
So as everybody knows, Reese Witherspoon, your founder. Can you talk a little bit about, Reese's founding of the company and what, you deal with day to day that, Reese doesn't do anymore or Reese does do, or how you all fit in, I guess?
Yeah, I think Reese, and she's talked a lot about this publicly, it was really born out of a gap she saw in the marketplace, right? That to Tommy's point earlier, that the decision makers weren't reflecting the audience, the viewer, and so how that impacted things that were being greenlit was real. Studios were making one movie a year for women. Studios weren't feeling the need to market to women in the same way. And so she said, well, you know what, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And she built the company with that in mind. I think the other thing too that's really key to sort of her philosophy, it's just that sort of spirit of collaboration, and that there's nothing that two women or more women together can't do. And so, it was sort of shattering that notion of this competition between women. It's we want to build a bigger table with room for everyone. And so I think that sort of ethos around collaboration extends not just to how we approach our projects. You'll see we work, stars of our projects are also executive producers of our projects. We want people to have real ownership and agency. So the themes that we think about in terms of our content also extend to how we run the business. So our executive team that Reese and Sarah Harden, our CEO, have built is, they're truly empowered and truly have agency. So while Reese is intimately involved in every single thing at the company, if she's not on set, she's in the office. At the same time, she's really empowered each of us to run the areas that we've been brought in to run. I think if you sort of move all the way upstream, it's sort of tone comes from the top. And so the tone and the culture and the values that we believe are so important to reflect in our content, so they actually change culture and change the narrative for women through storytelling. That's our mission. It's incumbent upon us to live by those same values every single day as we sort of operate, as we make decisions on talent we're going to partner with, people we're going to hire, the shows that we're going to produce.
So Tommy, you have an entrepreneurial partner that you're very close to. Could you talk a little bit about what it's like to partner with your wife and how you've structured the two companies to, stay married and have success?
It's just softball questions, right? No, that's fine. So there are two different companies. There's Confluential Films and there's Black Love Inc. Black Love is the media company that my wife and I founded together. I'm the chairman, she's the CEO. And Confluential Films, the film and TV production company, I founded, and I'm the CEO, and we're co-chair of that one. And it's been quite the process to figure out how to make it work together. And overall is most certainly net positive, but it's hard. It's hard to figure out the right balance. And I love being able to work with my wife, but we have a very different way of operating. We also have 3 kids. So 3 kids, 30-something employees, lots of businesses, lots of things going on. And so it has been an evolution, but a great one. And because like she's, especially Black Love, like she's the heart of that company, and she's such an empathetic, kind, sweet, smart person, and it would not work without her. And then also having her as the balance for me and Confluential is great because she's just an incredible person. But the biggest thing has been I compartmentalize things pretty easily. We were joking about this earlier where we could have a disagreement professionally or academically, and it could be really intense. And okay, then after that, let's go get something to eat. Like, there's no issue. But for my wife, it's like, yeah, don't touch me. It's like, but I don't care. It's like, don't hold my hand. It's like, what do you do? Why are you trying to hug me? And that has been something I've had to work through. And so it's like, I'm like, but it's just business. And it's like, and we're understanding that most people don't work like that, even if I do. And most people don't matter because it's her. And so it's needing to adapt to her and needing to sometimes compromise, which people hear, whether in business or in personal, they think it's a bad word, but it's not. It's just another way of adapting sometimes. And ultimately, it's been a beautiful partnership that we're still figuring out.
Well said. Let's open it up to all of you. So there's a little bit of a light in our eyes, but we'll do our best to see a hand raised. Mike, head over.
Hello. First, thank you guys for being here. I know you guys are super busy, and I hope I can form this question properly. But I came through the business in post-production in the early days of Roger Corman and Universal Studios on the other side. So filmmakers, independent, coming through, incredibly difficult, right? And now we've come to this age where we have just a plethora of content, entertainment, right? And then most of you probably read that A.O. Scott left, right? New York Times critic. So he left for a specific reason. And I guess the question is more around quality cinema and the independent, one of you mentioned about independent filmmaking, that are we at a new age with the studios changing where independent filmmakers can come through and bring incredibly quality cinema and be given a voice to do that? Is this a unique time versus certainly when I was coming up, it was like pulling teeth. If anyone in the room knows what 35 millimeter is, 16 millimeter, it was so difficult to get an independent film produced. Now we're in an age where there's easy access to digital equipment and things like that. But the question is quality cinema, and referencing A.O. Scott removing himself from the idea of cinema in general.
Let's turn to the
All the
filmmaker for
guitar.
that.
So, look, we have 4 movies at Sundance, and so 3 that we finance or co-finance, another one we put a little bit of money into, and so we are still very much in the indie space, even if it's only a part of our business. And it's easier to make a movie now than it's ever been, where you don't need a moviola, you don't need 35 millimeter, you don't need any of those things, but you still have to know how to tell a story. You still have to understand the landscape. And I think what happens sometimes is that people ignore the changing landscape. They ignore what's working. And hey, I really want to make this movie. I really want to make this tiny coming-of-age story because it's really personal to me. And I want to cast only the right actor and not somebody who, a distributor or even a festival, because festivals care about those things. And then they're surprised when it doesn't work. And so it's easier to make a movie than ever. You can make a movie on this and it will be something that is of great quality, but you've got to have something to say. And that's the thing that often separates it, because the technical piece of it is no longer a barrier. It's thinking about what you want to say, understanding the business about how you put it together, being responsible in how you do it. Because just because you can get $4 million for a documentary doesn't mean you should make it for that or for a film. If you wind up making something and then it's a commercial failure, it's a lot harder to continue and have a career beyond that. And so it's sort of the best of times, the worst of times, and it's kind of what you make of it.
Anybody else? Good. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for speaking with us, guys. So my question is, in terms of just storytelling, do you guys believe that storytelling is something you can develop over time? And if so, like, what are some of the things that you guys think about or do to kind of develop that skill set?
100%. I think that in this industry, talent is a minuscule part of what determines success. And so much of it is the work that goes into it. And people talk about writing, the brilliant writer, the idea of it's just somebody who's locked in a closet somewhere and just banging out the perfect script does not happen. The only way to get better as a writer or as a storyteller is to do. It's to iterate. You talk about somebody like Aaron Sorkin, who talked about the way that his writing process is. A lot of it is sometimes just going through, rewriting, letting your subconscious work, putting things in, keep going and going and going. And so all of these things you can learn to be better at. And don't get me wrong, part of it is an ability for dialogue or an ability for sort of seeing shots. But a lot of it is just doing the work of, you want to be a writer, you got to write, you got to read. You want to be a cinematographer, you have to study cinematography. You have to study what it means to do those things. And there are a ton of resources that cost nothing or that cost $20 and you can dig into it. But people often want to do stuff tomorrow and not thinking about the fact that they have time now and then positioning themselves in the way they're spending their time right now to be in a place where they can take advantage of it 4 years from now or 5 years from now, because I've been studying. And like, for me, I've written, directed, shot, edited professionally, but I probably still read and study more about those things than people who have never done them. And so continuing to be a student, continuing to push yourself, and also being around people who will tell you when something's not good, and making sure that you have people who are willing to do that. And so, yes, it is absolutely possible with hard work.
Great wrap of thought there. I think that's a great way to end the panel. I wish we had a time to do like 40 minutes with each of you. You all had so much to say we didn't get to, but thank you so much for what we did get to. Liz, Carmen, Tommy. Thank you.